Endstep said that Gunblade was brought back more or less for Cat. Is that true? Cat would be one of the primary people that likes Gunblade, right? Like Gunblade is a very high fantasy item. So to me, this is my personal opinion. It doesn't mean it's the opinion of the designers who worked on Gunblade. But to me, the reason I think Gunblade is a compelling item, there's two reasons for it. One is it's a hashtag hybrid item, right? There's a number of characters who do like the idea of hybrid items in the system, and we've had less of them over the years. The Jaxes, the Katarinas, the Akalis, the Kales, right? There's hybrid characters out there, the Kaisas, Ezreals, right? Like there's characters who like hybrid items. So Gunblade is a very compelling, enjoyable hybrid item. Now, the danger of hybrid items is that a lot of times hybrid items aren't actually hybrid items, they're just math problems. And the hybrid characters just buy the AD or AP, which gives them the most damage. And then that's how it goes, right? But, still a strong item fantasy. The other thing about Gunblade that I personally think is compelling, again, doesn't mean we should do it or it's good, but like I like it, is I think it's valuable for characters like Kale, Gwen, potentially Katarina, to have a option to purchase some type of vamp. I think that is helpful for like tying their kits together. And so Gunblade having some ability to like get some vamp on these characters, I think is potentially compelling. Now it's also potentially dangerous because, if Katarina starts vamping really hard, then like, does she become like an unstoppable monster? Does Akali's shape as a character look a lot more problematic when she can just vamp off the things that are happening, right? So that's definitely like a danger. But I do think that like having, like as an example, I like Blade of the Ruined King because it provides a lot of fighters some access to vamp at a cost. They're not getting tanky if they're buying it. Similarly, I like items like Gunblade potentially because it provides some hybrid characters some access to vamp, which I think can like really tie their patterns together. But it is dangerous. One of the things that was rough about Gunblade back in the day is it had some pretty like nasty pattern implications for a lot of the characters who bought it, because not only were they getting a lot of stats and vamping off of you, but they could target and slow you, which is a pretty strong thing to do. And so my biggest worry about Gunblade is how powerful the targeted slow on it is, because when that gets too strong, you get situations where like a lot of characters can like circumvent a lot of the gameplay and their patterns, like a character like Mordekaiser. Then it's like, uh-oh. And so there's actually a period of time where we actually deliberately, when we were reworking champions, didn't make them hybrid characters, because if we made them hybrids, they could buy Gunblade, and that was deemed like not okay. And so we would actually like removed Eve's AD ratios, removed Mordekaiser's AD ratios way back in the day when we were reworking them, removed some AP ratios and nerfed AP ratios from Wukong and stuff like that when we reworked them purely to avoid Gunblade. But I think a lot of that is just because of its targeted slow. And so depending on how strong that is, I don't think it's as worrisome.
Any fun stories regarding cut items for next season, or anything regarding items for next season? Fridge oculars. So let me think of something fun I could tell about something that I cut. The fun thing is, if you look at the wiki has item IDs. You can actually see the progression of items. So you can see, for example, Dusk and Dawn is the first one, because they're all in order, right? They're all Dusk and Dawn is 2510, and then Diadem of Songs is 2530. So you can see there's a bunch of spots in between them where other prototypes went that I cut. Anyway, TLDR. Let me think of a good prototype to talk about. So one of the prototypes that I think was kind of cool, that I think could work, but I think is fine to talk about, because it's like I don't think that this is like really anything super super shocking, I guess, or like super surprising that we're going to shock people with in the future. So I was testing a diver item at one point where it would get stacks when you cast abilities or attacked champions. but it would give you more stacks based on how many enemies were nearby. So the idea was like, oh, this is the diver's second item that you go when you want a team fight, or like the diver third item that you go when you feel like you have to team fight, right? And I had a number of different outputs on it. There was a version that had a big shield. There was a version that had big speed up. But the goal was, that hey, it's very easy to get this item to maximum stacks and trigger its effect, whatever the effect is, in a team fight. But very hard to do it in smaller scale fights. And it's kind of interesting because you could draw a lot of parallels from this item to the original Stair Axe. For those of you who don't remember this or weren't around when this happened, the original Stair Axe actually was not a lifeline item. The original Stair Axe actually required you to take a certain amount of damage in a certain window. You had to take like X amount of damage per, I don't remember how many seconds. But if you got slowly burned down from full HP, like in a 1v1 by like, a champion with a bunch of sustained damage, it would never trigger. And so the idea was like it was really team fight shaped. And so I actually think that was a really interesting paradigm for an item where it's like, hey, this item has a very clear downside in smaller scale fights because it sometimes just won't work or won't work as quickly or as powerfully. I thought that was actually a pretty cool idea. We ended up cutting it because divers didn't need as much itemization help. And so it's like, it's not, we just don't have time to make all of the items that I wanted to make. But that was a prototype that I think like, it kind of reaffirmed my interest in that space of like, oh, actually, people did feel like playtesting it that there was a real trade-off here, and there would be games where you wouldn't buy it because you wanted to play through side lane as Vi or whatever. Or, hey, I'm Wukong. I actually don't want to buy this second item this game because I think I'm going to be looking for smaller fights. Like, we're going to be playing away from the objectives. We can't 5v5 them right now. Therefore, I'm going to buy, Sundered Sky or whatever, which is more generic and will help me play for these smaller scale fights. I thought that was very cool. I think that's maybe one of the more interesting items that could return in the future that got cut. That I think is that I'm more comfortable talking about. Some of the other ones I cut, I'm like, well, I don't think I should talk about them for a variety of reasons. But that one hopefully is interesting. Of like, I tried a number of different outputs. The part of it that got taken and put onto Endless Hunger was the Omnivamp. I had a version of it that just gave you when you got the stacks maxed out, it would give you this huge buff of Omnivamp. And it was like, oh, so if I'm fighting for a while, I eventually get a ton of Omnivamp so that I can pop off in this fight. And the idea was that like, oh, you're Wukong, you were able to fight for a while. Now you're allowed to have a like ungated, very powerful sustain. Was kind of a cool fantasy, but that aspect of it didn't work quite as well for the 80 caster fighters we were targeting for Endless Hunger, so I swapped it over to a takedown trigger and kind of called it a day.